Welcome to the Heather Pitty Podcast. This podcast is about going after the life that you're made for, not just surviving life, but actually thriving. So thanks for joining us. Let's jump in. Well, I have a very special guest with me today, one of my favorite humans in the world. And I had to beg and plead, please come on my show.
Yeah, right.
This is my husband, Darren Pitty. And Darren, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I've been your husband for almost 30 years now. So, husband of one, dad of two fur babies too. I don't know. What is there to know? I pretty much,
what do you do?
Life. I love the outdoors. That's me.
Yep. And what do you do for a living?
I consult and advise philanthropic nonprofit organizations and help them receive some of their largest gifts by working with people that are considering estate gifts and planned gifts of large assets and that type of thing. So that's what I do. Love my work.
Yep. And we both own our own companies, but we have one big parent company that we've opened together and run each of our own companies. So I guess you're really like my business partner, aren't you?
I guess we are. Yeah. There might be like an ethical review that needs to happen there to make sure that's okay.
Good thing we have so many great people around us to keep us ethical and help us out. So we don't have to be business partners all the time. We get to be hubby and wifey, don't we?
Yep.
Well, I wanted you to come on the show today because I wanted to kick off this year with this idea of clarity. And one of the things you and I both do, and we've been talking about the last several weeks, so I said, hey, would you come on my podcast, is this idea of getting our word for the year. So do you want to speak a little bit to that, of just this idea of why we get a word for the year, how long we've been doing that? Give us a little context for that.
Oh, gosh. I think I first heard about this about a decade ago or so, approximately. And I was listening to actually another podcast and heard a couple of people talking about this idea of getting some guidance going into the year. And this particular podcast has a strong spiritual emphasis. And they talked about this, taking this approach of looking back and assessing where we're coming from and actually looking forward. And actually, as a part of this spiritual practice, they were discussing actually praying into this idea of asking for divine guidance. What is God up to in my life, or what is the universe up to in my life in this coming year, rather than go into it blindly? So I listened to this discussion, and actually I think I might have listened to it the following year when they did the discussion again, and it just clicked. And I said, there is a lot of wisdom there. And I think out of that, you were probably listening to those same discussions, and we discussed that. And I think out of that, we've been doing this now for about a decade.
We have, haven't we? And it's helped us reflect back on the year and to look forward. And in fact, you came up with this great idea. And honestly, it's a great party. And you were always coming up with party ideas. Tell our listeners a little bit about our New Year's Eve party that we had.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Well, we wanted to host some friends, and we've got some good friends that we do life with. And we said we wanted to look back at the last year, but, sometimes looking back at 2020 and 2021, for some folks, it's really a struggle. So we didn't want to spend too much time on that. We wanted to spend the majority of our time now. And we did that last New Year's Eve, looking forward. What is 2022 about? So we glanced back, but really looked forward in terms of what we wanted to be anticipating and living into this coming year.
And I loved it. I mean, I still can remember some of the words. These are some of our dear friends where when they come to mind, I want to think about what it is that they're really focusing on this year. Yeah. And I still remember some of the words. Can't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Legacy. What were some other ones?
Yeah. Legacy was so powerful. Just a friend of ours talking about legacy with their family and looking back and having recently lost his parents and wanting to think intentionally and live intentionally about the coming year and leaving a new legacy with his kids, and he and his wife being intentional about that. I remember one of the words that somebody shared was this idea, a very organic word that I just loved, and the word was bloom.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
Year of blooming, and not really knowing exactly what that meant, but, living into that. And someone else, a similar type of word was grow. And it was just such a rich time and a lot of intentionality and a lot of rich discussion. And it's neat because we know these folks and we get to walk this year with them and they with us. And just check in on these things occasionally and not leave it to chance, and not live with the wind blowing us in whatever direction, but with an increased level of intentionality, I think is what it is. Because
you don't drift into the life you want, do you?
No, we don't. No. Things left to drift tend to go in random, unintentional, and very seldom very good places. So we want to arrest the drift and live with intentionality, set our course, dial in the compass rose, on heading, not 1 degree or 2 degrees or 3 degrees off. And we hold that heading and we update navigationally along the way. And that's how we end up at our destination.
Well, and part of where I'm kind of laughing at our private joke, I think it was a couple of years ago, and I probably was going on about something. And I remember you saying, Hev, you don't drift in the life you don't drift in the life that you want. You got to be intentional about it. And it became one of those funny one-liners. We were always tossing back and forth. And it was one of those poignant moments. And you're always so good at these one-liners and you know how to capture it. But I'm telling you, it really shifted my whole paradigm where I thought, that's right. You don't drift into fill in the blank. You don't drift into starting the business you want. You don't drift into a great marriage. You don't drift into good intentional friendships. You don't drift into making money. Fill in the blank. You don't drift into it. Anything that's worth having takes intentionality, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I remember the discussion we were having. And it's just related to such a bigger picture too, even in physics. Things are in a constant state of falling apart. There are laws of physics that tell us that. And you and I, at that time, we were having a discussion about living a life marked really specifically by freedom. And as we talked about that, it just hit me that we do not drift into freedom. That if you look at the history of the planet Earth, in every nation, nations actually drift. If it were unintentional, it would drift into a state of bondage or servitude to somebody or something. And if we want freedom, we've got to be intentional. We will never drift into a life of freedom. We've got to constantly be on guard for the things that will bind us.
You're right. It was freedom. That must have been my word for the year.
It was. I think that was quite a few years ago, but it was. Yeah.
It was my freedom cry. And then you're like, drift into freedom. Yeah.
Right. I think we had Braveheart slogans around the house that year. Freedom.
We got some Scottish in us, don't we?
We must. Let's just go with yes.
Let's go with yes. We're total butts. Okay. So let's get back to what was your word for last year? What did it teach you? And then where I'm going with this. I want to talk about your word that you have for this year, but start with what your word was for 2021 and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, my year for 2021. Well, I'm going to go back 2 years if I can, because I think 2 years ago, the reason I bring that up is because we were entering into what we didn't even know was that year of the pandemic. But going into that year, I had a word that I felt just like, yes, this word is calling to me. And it had to do with kind of simplifying my life and bringing things into focus. And rather than moving in multiple directions, I wanted to be moving in one direction and unifying this idea of oneness in my own life and decisions. And the word I had in 2020 was fidelity. And just this idea of oneness. And there is one big idea, and I am one man. I have one life. I have one wife. And today is the one day I have, and kind of this fidelity and focus on the one thing.
Mm.
Little did I know in 2020 how important that word would be,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
mayhem that year became for so many of us.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not going to say it was mayhem, because for me, and I almost feel guilty saying this, it was a year that took my busy life of travel and
Mm-hmm.
hotel stays and airports and clients in multiple states, and it became a year of, ooh, my business just stopped. Okay, how do we
Mm-hmm.
restart this?
Mm-hmm.
And Zoom became my new business, and all of my communication became, very simple and very focused. And as an act of fidelity, my life became focused. I had no idea that was the direction of my year going
Yeah.
into it, but I do think I had some divine guidance and
Mm-hmm.
preparing me for that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was 2020. And then at the end of 2020, just reapproaching that idea of what will 2021 hold for me. And the word I got going into last year that just gave me so much energy was the word homecoming.
Oh yeah. I was trying to remember what it was. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I get a lump in my throat just thinking about that word, because
Mm.
that's what the year became for me. It's what I wanted it to be, but I couldn't have articulated what I wanted the year to be.
Mm.
But it was a building and a deepening and an enriching of fidelity.
Mm.
And I've always loved my home. I've always loved being home.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved being grounded. And last year was just such a rich experience for me of enriching everything that's close to home,
Mm.
relationships with my neighbors, my closest friends and allies right here in my own town and community and neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You and our son and our daughter. It was an interesting year. Our daughter, interestingly, was going off to college.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we had this global pandemic and lockdown and travel restrictions and college campuses closing. So it was a really interesting year of kind of bridging what was home for her. Was it here? Was it there? It was some of both. And homecoming was just such a rich, rich guide for my year. It was such a rescue to have that in my home.
What's so cool is because I think that was a full year of you getting to be at home. Wow. And right before that year, I remember saying to you, I think you're traveling too much.
Yeah.
We're missing you. The kids are missing you. You don't want to miss out on their, senior year. And you don't want to, I know your heart for your kids, and your business was getting so busy. And I guess the cost of success, but we started really seeing, is this worth it? And so COVID kind of answered that for you. So I find that interesting that was your word for the year. And we had no idea that you would be, it would be pivoting more toward you with even managing the house, the kids, everything. Because my business was growing exponentially with it all being virtual. And yours got to come to a nice, gentle slowdown. I mean, it didn't stop altogether, but it just got to slow down. And you, instead of get on planes, you just got on Zoom, which was saving you hours of travel time and just being away from the family. And it allowed me to continue with my pace of work so that you could step in and do the stuff you were loving to do as a father that I got to hand off more as a mother.
Right.
That's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it was. So I think the word rescue just felt like such a rescue, this guiding principle over the years of fidelity and then homecoming. It just was so good for my heart. And I think my role in the family was stabilized by those guiding words. So, well, I want to kick it back to you, because what about you? Your word last year or 2 years, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, my word for 21 was compassion. And I remember in the heat of a moment where I was not being kind to myself, our self-talk could be so harsh. And I literally was like, what's my word for the year? What's my word for the year? I can't remember my word for the year. And just a little tip for all the listeners out there, write your word for the year at the beginning of your journal, because there'll be days that you go, what was it again?
It's so true.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I had it all in caps and I was like, that's right. Compassion. I thought, how ironic. So for me, compassion was less about being compassionate toward the world and honestly learning to be compassionate to myself. And I wouldn't even say that I mastered it. I would say I just grew my self-awareness on my self-talk. And I think one of the things I truly believe is the way we talk to ourselves will be the way we start talking to people.
Oh, yeah.
And how we love ourselves is how we love other people. And so if I want to be a better friend, mother, wife, coach, fill in the blank there, I could see that I had some inner work to do. And the compassion needed to start with me first so that it can authentically flow out of my relationship with myself. And since I'm a person of faith, my relationship with God and myself, and how I was having my inner dialogue going on. Yeah. And compassion was really an important awareness. And I think it really impacted me moving into my new word this year. And I'll go and share my new word, then pass it back to you. But my new word this year is welcome. And it's this idea that I want to be so intentional about welcoming in all the good stuff in this life, all the abundance, all the love, all the peace, all the joy, all the divine guidance, all the wisdom, the discernment, all the great stuff that this world is made of, faith, belief. I want to welcome all that in. And I think we spend a lot of time rejecting things or trying to build barriers against things that are dark or evil or hard, or, I think I just thought, I'm kind of over that. I want to pivot over to, how do I throw my arms out wide to the world and say, what do I get to welcome in? I'm real clear of what I need to reject. I'm real clear of the boundaries I need to have around toxicity. But what do I get to welcome in? Yeah. And I think I am more excited than ever to step into that word and welcome 2022. Oh, yeah. And all that is here for me. What does it feel like to anticipate something versus dreading something? And I think we've lived with a lot of growing dread throughout the last couple of years, and what the pandemic has done to a lot of our emotional well-being and our psyche and our just kind of moving things around for us and creating unpredictability, to be able to start saying, no, I think one of the most defiant acts I can do right now is to say, there are so many beautiful, good things still in this world. How do I welcome it in? That's good. So what's your word for the year? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a story how I kind of found this word. I was talking to a gentleman who's a bit of a mentor and a guide and a sage in my own life. And just talking about, quite honestly, a struggle of mine. And that struggle has to do with some long, deeply held historical beliefs in me that I've got to do things alone. And I don't get help. I don't get support. It's up to me, and I have to make it work. And it's been a struggle, and I'm trying to be intentional and grow in that. And in response to that, he just so clarifyingly said, it's really unkind to say to ourselves, I've got to get it all together. I've got to get it together. And he said, actually, the truth is you get to do things with other people together. And he used the same word in both the negative and the positive connotation. He said, the self-talk of, I have to have it all together. He said, no, you don't have to have it all together. Rather, you get to do it together with others. And it just, this burning arrow of the word together hit my heart as he said that. And I knew that was the word for the year, together. And I don't think I can even say much more than that, because I still don't know everything this word means for me. Except I do feel like I'm in a learning posture here, in a growing posture here, that I want to really
eradicate and put to rest, put to bed some long-held tendencies of me to go it alone, to be a self-determined man, emphasis on the word self.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be that anymore. I want to eradicate that. And just as I was beginning to write some thoughts about this word, I heard somebody say, this is somebody who's achieved quite a bit in life. They said, anything worth doing is going to require others to do it with you. And I was like, oh, that is so good. It's so good for me to hear, because the poser in me that says, would say something like, anything worth doing, you better know how to do it yourself. I'm like, what kind of a mentality is that?
Well, it keeps your world small too, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
And it keeps you locked in a cage.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I'm putting that to rest. I'm eradicating that from my life. I want to do life together with others in community. I don't have to have it all together. I get to put my arms out and invite others in with me to do it together. And I feel like I've got so much to learn in these next few months, next year with that word. I just invite it in. All the goodness of together, I invite in.
I welcome it.
You welcome it. Yes, you do.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Where do you feel like you are doing together well? And where do you feel like you would like to do it more in this coming year?
I don't know if I'm doing it really well anywhere right now. Because I'm evaluating everything. I believe right now I am in the troubleshooting phase of the word. Where am I still making agreements that I've got to do life alone? In my work, in my friendships, in the family, in my closest relationships, in things that I want to grow. I don't know if I'm doing it well anywhere, to be quite honest. And that, I don't mean that at all like I'm shaming, and I don't need, affirmation. No, you're doing, no, it's not that. I really don't know that I'm doing it well anywhere. And that's why I believe God has taken me into this. There's a better way, Darren. I want to show you a better way. And I just want to say, yes, I'm ready for the better way.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I do say God. I mean, and I say that when I say God, because I do believe if we lean into the divine guidance that is available to us, and I really want to just give a lot of freedom. Some people will call it God. Some people will call it being the divine, the universe. There is a loving, kind guide that I have, that you have, that is available to anyone who will make themselves open to it. And I just want to leave it at that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What do you want to model for your kids?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded one, huh? Well, starting with this, especially for my son, I think, son, you don't have to be a lone ranger in life. And I mean, to think that for almost 17 and a half years, I've modeled for him a lot of dad's belief and working assumptions that he's got to do it alone. I want to undo as much of that as I can. And I want to model for him, son, it's all going to go better for me and for you if we can do life in community, in everything, our work, our biggest dreams, our goals, our planning. You have a partner in life. You have multiple partners in life. You have the divine, you have your spouse, you have your family, you have friends, you have other resources available. You could pay people to partner with you in some things, but you do not have to do it alone. That's what I want to model specifically in this next year.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's, I think there's a little bit of a gender discrimination here too in this, and I don't mean that in a accusing way of discrimination, but I mean like, I think the idea of going alone is a little bit of a masculine bent that society tells young men and maturing men and developing men and grown men, you are better and stronger if you can do it alone. And I just want to call that out as false, false, false. Now, yes, if you're stranded on a desert road and you have a flat tire, you better know how to change a tire alone because there's no help coming. And there are some things you need to be able to do, but to not make agreements with this is the predominant paradigm that I have to do life in alone. That is not true. And as men, I want to scream and model out to this. No, that is not true. We get to challenge that assumption. There's a better way. And I'm starting with myself.
I love that, because I was going to ask you, where do you think this comes from? But it sounds like it's a message that has just gone way back for as long as you can remember, huh?
Yeah, it goes back early in my story, just my, family of origin type stories, things that I felt for, the circumstances I was in. Looks like this is up to me. Looks like I've got to figure this out, and you do that enough times for enough years, and it just becomes kind of this paradigm that you live from. And here's the thing, sometimes it works. And every time it works, it's a little bit reaffirming, like, look at that. I did that alone. And look, I even got some kudos. The boss noticed, or the company noticed, or the family noticed, or, hey, my buddies noticed. And every time that gets affirmed, not that affirmation is bad, but sometimes we have the false self affirmed. And that can be even more insidious, because I want to live out of my truest self, not my false self.
Yeah, we don't want that poser being affirmed. And I know we've both experienced it on both ends of the spectrum, where we've gotten it affirmed and where we've gotten it rejected. And then we realized, I think I just got rescued here. Yeah. That's not what I want to be anyways.
Right.
Let me ask you this question. What are you hoping that this word will do for you by the end of 2022?
Oh, I am hoping that it will open new pathways to life for me, specifically in how I learn to collaborate and achieve and accomplish greater things than I've ever done or could do alone. And even saying that, I'm like, wow, I guess I have a lot riding on this word. But I really do. I anticipate, if I can bring some people in and collaborate and really do this together business well, it's going to open some whole new doors. I think it'll open it's like being on a big pasture and just blowing the fence down and saying a whole new field is available now. It's going to take me to places where entirely new fields are available to explore, because I'm willing to do things together. That's what I hope.
I welcome it, babe.
Yes, you do. Well, what about welcome? And if you could, are you pinning any hopes on welcome?
I was thinking
what
that.
It'll bring you, or what?
I think more joy, more peace. And you know me, I'm a hard worker. I stay focused. I love my work, love what I do, but I don't want my work to be motivated out of any kind of striving or anxious thinking or anxiety or fear of dropping the ball or fear of not being enough. Yeah. I want all my work and my play to come out of a place of peace. And I want to be motivated by peace. I want, when I step into conversations with clients, it's with peace. When I chat with my teenage daughter and son, it's coming from peace. When I meet my neighbor down by the mailbox, we stop and chat over, it's motivated by peace. Not, I got to quick get back. And I think it's just this part of the word welcome is really cultivating a sense of being fully present, because this idea of worrying is really about sucking you into the past or sucking you into the future. It's not about being fully present. So when I start to chew on things and my mind chatter is going a mile a minute, my false beliefs are creeping up everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's that awareness that I don't have to live that way.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a victim to my mindset. I am not a victim to that. I get to welcome in new ways to think, new ways to be motivated, new ways to feel, new ways to say, no, thank you, and not feel guilty.
Yeah.
You know, some of my issues on that with people pleasing.
No.
And I love that you don't have those issues. I welcome in your ability to put down strong boundaries and not care what people think.
Well, I welcome in your ability to collaborate and work together with people.
Yeah, so I'm good at that, aren't I?
as we each take our journeys and live within our words, we can lean into the wisdom of the other person's journey as well. That's beautiful.
Well, I want to leave our listeners with some encouragement, because this, of course, is not a sell or a pitch to choose a word for the year, but really more importantly, focus on where you want to go. Focus on what you want to get out of this year. If a word helps, choose a word. Mm-hmm. You and I seem to love this word mainly because we live pretty fast and hard and love our work and love playing and everything like that, that a word is a really great way to stop and center us. And for me, it's about more peace, more joy. For you, I wrote it down because it was so good. It's about new pathways in life to accomplish greater things. Oh, wow. Isn't that a great definition?
I said that?
You said that. It was really good.
The pressure's on now. I got to do it.
Well, I guess that's the encouragement that I would leave everybody with, is choose a word that brings more peace, more joy, that allows you to create new pathways in your life to accomplish greater things. I just loved how you phrased that. Yeah. So I guess I want to ask you, any last parting words you want to leave our listeners with and encouraging them for 2022?
It's not too late. I mean, we're at the end of the first month, but you didn't miss the boat. If you don't get your clarity on the next word or the next year and the new word or the guidance until February or March, it's still okay. Fully engage. And I just encourage folks to, if you don't already, write some thoughts down as you look back, write a few pages on a notebook or a journal or something, and then write a few pages thinking intentionally, thinking forward. So glance back, really plan forward, and see if the guidance that comes to you might be clarified in that one word. And don't wait until 2023. Jump on it, do it.
Well said. The other thought I had too was, if it feels too good to be true. That's way back when with the word freedom, but one word that's really coming to my mind is abundance, because I was struggling with the scarcity mindset. And it was, I want to say, almost 12 years ago. That word really changed my life. It's when I started my company. And I think it's the foundation that I started my company off of, was abundance, because I was pivoting away from a secure career into an entrepreneur unknown and wondering if anyone was going to hire me. And now with, just the success I've had in my work at 12 years later, I'm so glad I took that risk. But I would say it was that word abundance that I thought, what feels too good to be true? An abundance of clients, an abundance of resources, an abundance of people to support me and to come alongside me and help me, everything from website to client relations, to everything, marketing. And, look at where I'm at now. Look at the people in my life. I have an abundance of all of that. Yeah. And I think that's what I would say too to people. Don't feel too cautious. Let yourself reach for what might feel too good to be true. Make that your word for the year. Agreed. Beautiful. Well, I look forward to reflecting back at the end of the year, and maybe we'll wrap this conversation up in a year and talk about what it was like to have welcome and to have together as our guiding words. Yep. Maybe we'll bring our friends on. Wouldn't it be fun to interview them? Well, thanks, Darren. I loved chatting with you, and I'll see you in a few minutes. All right. See ya. Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks for listening. And please drop a review. It really helps us out. wherever you're listening from. And if you want to find out more about your clarity, your confidence, and your courage, go ahead and get my book, and you can find it at heatherpenny.com. Cheering you all on.